spawn a prefab into your game, you're going to need at least two things. First of all, you're going to need a prefab. Here we've set up a Monkey Kid character. He just has a movement script on him, a rigid body 2D, and a capsule collider 2D. Next, you're going to need a script to run the code. So we've gone ahead and created a spawn prefab script, which I'll open up here. Alright, so for our script to spawn prefabs, we're going to need at least three things. We'll need a reference to our prefab, so we'll call private GameObject and our prefab. Now it's private, so we won't be able to see it inside of the editor. So to make it available to Unity, we're going to call serialize field just beforehand. And we do this to protect our data. Second thing we're going to need, and we'll make this private as well, so go ahead and call serialize. We are going to need a vector 2, because this is a 2D game. If you're doing a 3D, you'll just need a vector 3. But we'll need a position, so we'll call it our spawn position. Next, again, we're serializing, protecting our data. We're going to need a boolean because we want to try to randomize this position, so we'll set this up to use later. You'll see exactly what it's for. We'll just call this one random. So now we don't need any of this information, so we'll just delete that out. So to control when we spawn our prefab, we are going to put our code inside of a method called public void on spawn prefab. And this is going to say if random. Oops. And what do we want to do if it's random? So if it is random, we need to we want to randomize our position. So we're going to create a x and y variable that are random. So to do that, we call random dot range, because we want it to stay on the screen. We don't want it to go anywhere. We are going to set the values to -8 and 8 for our x values. And we're going to do the exact same thing for our y, except we are going to keep it between -4 and 4. Now here's where we will actually spawn our prefab in, and to do that we will call instantiate, which basically tells Unity to create a new one of these guys. So we'll pass in our prefab, and we'll say a new vector 2, and we'll give it our random x and our random y. And then we need a rotation, so for that we're going to call quaternion, and we want it to be 0, so we'll just call identity. So that will instantiate a prefab at our random vector 2 with a 0 rotation. Now, if we have not set our value to random, then we want to use the one we've set inside the editor. So again, we'll just call our instantiate method. So we'll just copy this guy down, make things a little easier. But instead of a new vector 2, we will call the one we've set inside of the editor. And that is all we need. So now back inside of our editor, we'll let that compile. And we've gone ahead and set up some player controls to decide when we want to spawn a prefab. And it's just going to be the enter key on our keyboard. And this is using Unity's new input system. So we've created an action map and an action called spawn a prefab, which is why we've named our method on spawn prefab, because it will trigger the spawn prefab action. And that's going to be triggered when we hit the enter key. So now we no longer need our prefab in the scene, so we'll just delete that guy out. But we do need something to hear when we press the enter key. So for that, we're going to create an empty game object, and we're going to drag our spawn prefab script onto it. And then we're also going to add a player input. Into that we are going to attach our player controls, set to spawn prefab. So now we just need to drag in a reference to our prefab into our script. We'll leave our position at 0 for right now. If we hit play, we press enter, nothing is happening. And it's because we didn't include the A in spawn A prefab. So we've added that, save that one more time, come back in. Those names have to match exactly, and also include the word on for your script in order to trigger a input action. So now we're in our game, we can hit enter, and we hit enter multiple times, and it appears like nothing is happening. But if you look at our hierarchy, you can see a lot of characters have spawned in. They are just all in the same position. So we can start to randomize these guys. So we can stop our scene. Let's name our input manager something that makes it a little more noticeable. So let's call it input manager. We can tick the random box to start randomizing our game objects. Now if we hit enter, see they all spawn within the scene. We can also set specific positions if we want our guy to spawn way out of the scene. Just put these values up, press enter. We can see this guy spawned on the end and he has the values we specified. We can see him if we go to our scene view and scroll out. He is outside of our camera. And that is all you need to start spawning prefabs.